start, I just want to say there will be a brief mention of eating disorders and various mental health issues, because that's a part of my life. So, yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Sim Quick-Laughlin, and my senior capstone project is on artistic integrity and a battle against residential conformity. And I will give a brief overview of it, but to try and cover my entire senior project in one presentation would kind of be a disservice to the detail I put into it. Instead, I would like to hone in on one specific area of study within my project, that being interior design itself. In this presentation, I'll be sharing my connection to the art form and an overview of what interior design is, as well as the intention behind my redesign of the Luedtke Advisory Space, some unique experiences I've had with the project process, and my future plans. My path to interior design. Since early childhood, I have always loved creative hobbies. From drawing to singing, my life revolved around liberal arts. While I would have loved to have just been an independent artist, for whatever reason, I convinced myself that there was absolutely no way for that to be financially feasible as a career option. So, although I liked making art, I wanted something more than that. It's worth noting that while growing up in the suburbs, I became used to all the houses looking the same on the outside. But I loved getting to see the inside of homes because that's where people truly express themselves. Regardless, I didn't know what to do with that passion, so by the end of 6th grade, I decided that I just wanted to be an elementary art school teacher because I liked art and I wanted to work with kids, and I was inspired by my own art teacher. At the beginning of my Valley New School career, I spent most of my time distracted due to undiagnosed ADHD, uninspired from improper depression treatment, and afraid of growing up because of my unresolved anxiety. My ability to work was fueled by my excitement of my new environment, and once that went away, I was a bit of a mess. Then sophomore year, I, much like everyone else, went into quarantine. But instead of working on my schoolwork, I went off my medication, developed an eating disorder, and experienced ego death. I also rediscovered my social anxiety by choosing not to return to school when quarantine protocols were lifted and isolating myself in my room. Junior year was a time of recovery, regaining my ability to work, discovering my identity, and figuring out what my future would look like. The junior project led me on an adventure. I started the year thinking I'd graduate and go live in a commune, and ended the year planning to be a baker. Then there was last year, senior year part 1. I was advised by Luedtke to spend the year making up missed credit and to wait on starting my senior project. And in the process, I learned about and did my first project on interior design. Having loved it so much, I decided to devote my foreseeable future to it. Specifically, I'm interested in historical preservation-based interior design, where your top priority is the preservation of historical artifacts instead of just creation and design. I chose this subcategory because of my disdain for gentrification, for the history and culture it erases. I did a project that year on gentrification and another on architecture in order to prepare. And because of those projects, I had a better understanding of relevant concepts related to interior design and how I could choose something more specific as a senior project. I named my project Artistic Integrity and a Battle Against Residential Conformity, which in simple terms is a question. Why are houses in suburbs so boring? My subtopics are based around all different factors that affect different styles: artistic integrity, social trends, residential conformity, and direction of interior design. So what is interior design? I know I throw the term around a lot, but interior design is defined as the art and science of enhancing the interior of a space in order to create a polished and more aesthetically pleasing environment. I think of it like this. When animals are put into a zoo enclosure, they perform poorly when they lack enrichment in their environment. Sure, people are more complicated than most other animals, but the idea still carries. One's environment has great impact on their well-being. More than psychological effects, there's often a reason behind interior design choices. Remember, at its core, interior design is still design, and design is problem solving. So although a bed is all it takes to make a bedroom, history has shown that elevating the mattress off the ground with a bed frame keeps it from getting moldy, and that down comforters last longer when you use sheets because you don't need to clean them as often with a layer of protection between you and the comforter. Interior design is a valuable passion, especially when modern America has preferential treatment towards design that favors simplicity, leading us to standardizing modern housing design. It's unfortunate that decorating has long been considered a skill or passion of the wealthy, only for modern day America to prioritize minimalism as the height of luxury. So I'd like to share a few steps on how you as an individual can make any space your own. Whether you're redesigning your bedroom or your cubicle at work, the best place to start is to create a plan. Before you let yourself get caught up in the excitement of redecorating, start writing ideas down. Remember, this is just a list of ideas, and a very first draft at that. So no ideas are bad ideas. If nothing really comes to mind, start with a list of your restrictions. Can you paint? What's your budget? How much time do you have to work on this? Limits like these work like blinders on a horse. They help you stay focused on your path and remove distractions by blocking options that you don't really have. But take note, some restrictions are more important to follow, while others are mere guidelines. So if you really can't stand the beige on beige color palette of your apartment, maybe that's something worth finding alternatives for. This next step is especially helpful if you need to get someone else's permission before you start implementing your redesign. Start a mood board for your space. According to a masterclass from interior design, Corey Damon Jenkins, mood boards are essential to all forms of design. Try pulling from a real range of inspiration, like jewelry, art, texture, and architecture. The mood board presents the overall vibe of a space in an aesthetically pleasing package. This is also when you should start organizing your ideas, cutting out the inapplicable, picking color palettes. Maybe even rate your ideas on a scale of how important they are for you to make happen. If you really want to be meticulous in your planning, you could also create a color board showing how you want different colors to interact with each other, or a pattern board showing more of the same, but this isn't necessarily an important step. Also, if you haven't already, now would be the perfect time to find your restrictions and cross out ideas that go against them. It's finally time to start looking for actual decor pieces, but there are different ways to go about it. If you already know your budget, obviously look for things inside of it. But if you're less certain, don't get caught up on it. Start looking for things, but just wait on buying to avoid spending all your money in one place. Take the time to start playing with layouts. Even without using a design software, just drawing out your plan can really help you better envision what you might be missing. If you're struggling with layouts, it's always good to break it down into little pieces. In other words, create sections within your space. It doesn't matter if you're working on decorating your whole school or just your room at home. Identify what activities require space and access to certain materials, and then how they may interact with each other. Rugs are a really easy way to create a section, but you could also use decorative folding walls, bookcases, curtains, or even just turn seating to face each other. When it does finally come time to make your first purchase, don't be tempted to go for the paint. Often people want to tackle the biggest piece of visual real estate first, that being the walls. But here's the thing. When you find the perfect couch, and it only comes in 2 shades of gray, a beige, a floral print, and a moss green, you'll be so glad that you didn't end up painting first, because you were gonna use a midnight moss green, which is just close enough to the moss green of the couch that it totally would have clashed. There's a pretty finite amount of fabric colors any given furniture piece comes in, but there's almost an infinite amount of paint colors to choose from. So don't unintentionally limit yourself to furniture that matches your very specific shade of ultraviolet paint. You might be making things harder than they need to be. My last piece of advice is to go easy on yourself. There's a good chance you might not have enough money to make everything happen, or that you'll go over your original budget if you do make it all happen. Just remember, that happens so often to people that we have the iron triangle of choice: cheap, fast, good, where you can only pick 2. You want the redesign to be fast and cheap, it's gonna be low quality. You want the redesign to be cheap and good, it's gonna be slow. You want the redesign to be good and fast, it's gonna be expensive. The more you practice design, the closer you get to finding harmony between all 3. But don't expect to stumble upon it your first go. Maybe my favorite part of my senior project, getting to work on my advisory room redesign. An advisory room has some unique space requirements. It must have room for about 17 people to sit in. All furniture should be relatively easy to clean. A speaker should be able to present, and an advisor should be able to have a private meeting there. Overall, just lots to consider. And although I did choose each piece because I liked it, the decor is much more intentional than just that. For instance, take notice of the abundance of different seating choices. I did this because while a few sofas would easily help fill the requirement of sitting 17 people, I know that while some students would like to be conjoined to one another, others wouldn't touch each other with a 10-foot pole. Or even the pill of the rugs. Yes, it would be nice to have a shaggy or fluffy rug, but first of all, that would be problematic to clean, and second of all, when the pill of a rug is longer than 1.5 inch, people who are wheelchair users will have a harder time going over that area. So any rugs would need to be secured to the floor and have a short pill. Even the color palette of the room is inspired by the Iris Apfel rug that I found in love. Now, the Luedtke Advisory specifically has a need for curtains due to a lovely corner office that heats up like an oven in the morning to midday sun. But I didn't want that to get in the way of having both plants and students sitting on the window ledge. So instead of the curtains being flush to the window, I would have them lined up with the edge of the window ledge. That way, they can be fully closed without the seating and plants being affected, but they're still sheer so the sun can come through and students can't hide behind them. Now, near the very end of my senior year, I had my senior project live source interview, which you really shouldn't do. And to prove that you shouldn't do it, I'll let you in on a little secret about how the live source meeting went. It was fantastic. The group at Hoffman Designs were amazing to the point that it was a shame that I didn't contact them right at the beginning of the year. It wasn't just some crusty old professor on tenure who couldn't care less about my project. Oh no, it was a team of 5 designers who volunteered to be a knowledgeable jury of my peers and give me constructive feedback and ideas for my design. Not to mention that they offered to guide me through every step of the design process and give feedback on each step of my project as well. I can't even begin to explain how crushing it was to hear that, all, give or take 10 days before my assessment. But being the great people they are, the Hoffman team still gave me as much feedback as they could in one session, as well as an interview on their experiences. They also offered their help to any future students interested in design and extended an invite to me for a job shadow opportunity with them. Having been a student at Valley New School for 6 years, I've spent about 1/3 of my life here and have experienced some unique opportunities. Some things were offered to me, like getting to take a few Fox Valley technical classes this year for free, which I highly recommend because getting to have this experience before college made me feel better about what to expect in college. Plus, one of the 2 classes I took was a great help to me for my senior project. The first class I took was in person and on campus. It was an intro to computer design class. Essentially, it was a class on how to use the 3D design software called SketchUp, followed by how to turn that into a concept board for your portfolio. After passing the class, I used my newfound knowledge of SketchUp to create the 3D design model of the Lübke Advisory. It was an extremely useful class, and because I did it through the Start College Now program, it was completely free as long as I passed my courses, which I did. But I would avoid taking the on-course college success class unless you need free college credit, because it just teaches you everything you've already been learning at BNS. Otherwise, Start College Now is a pretty great opportunity. Which leads me to my next point. If you're ever uncertain or nervous about a big decision, please give yourself a trial period for anything thrown your way. I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to succeed in the college system, but trying it out before I had greater consequences made me feel a lot more confident. Or like how having attended the senior meeting last year while I wasn't working on my senior project, it really helped me understand what to expect at each senior meeting this year, so I wasn't so worried about them. Some other things that have happened to me were less opportunities and more lessons. The most impactful conversation I ever had with Lübke didn't happen until late last school year. I really felt ashamed that it was going to take me an extra year to graduate. I was embarrassed and thought I was kind of a failure. But Lübke said something along the lines of, "It's kind of unfair that our school spends all this time teaching students it's okay to learn at your own pace. Your education should be customized to your wants and needs, but you have to graduate in 4 years or you lose. You shouldn't be embarrassed to be doing what we've been saying you should do. Go at your own pace." I realized she's right, but also that I think psychologically I needed someone to give me permission to not be embarrassed. After graduation, I'll be traveling to Europe with our travel abroad group. And at the beginning of the summer, After graduation, I'll be traveling to Europe with our travel abroad group at the beginning of summer. And then I'll cryo-freeze myself until I'm ready to attend Fox Valley Technical College for a cheaper start on my path to earning my bachelor's degree in interior design and architecture. I'll also continue working at Menasha's Butamore Elementary School and before and after school care to pay for my education and to fuel my shopping habits.
Yes.
Finally, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who supported me for the past 6 years. I can't express how unbelievably grateful I am. I'd like to thank my parents for being my external motivators when I couldn't motivate myself. And I'd like to thank Ludke for never giving up on me, because she's nothing if not headstrong. I'd like to thank my guided project mentor from 7th grade, Brenda Maggard, who was my first friend at VNS and was essentially my school mom until the day she graduated. I'd like to thank my older sister Drake for helping make sure that I had friends before I even came to VNS by telling some particularly cool people to look out for me. Also, more specific to my senior project, I'd like to thank the people at Hoffman Design for an insightful life source opportunity. I truly wish I could have reached out at the beginning of the school year. And lastly, I'd like to give a special thanks to Caitlin Bryan, who I met for the first time 11 years ago at Johnson Montessori, and who I met again 5 years ago when she came to Valley New School and joined the improv group I led. Thank you all so much for listening. So the question was, how did I first get into interior design? Literally the start of my passion came from me angrily ranting at my mom about the changes happening in downtown Appleton and how they were taking out all these beautiful historic buildings and just filling them in with blocks and apartments. Like, I could go on a very long rant about that, but my mom told me, because I've spent like so much of my life worrying about my future and like, what am I gonna do? She was like, you know, if you're not sure what you're gonna do because you don't know what you like, pick something you hate and change it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a really great point. Because I always find it easier to list off the things I hate than the things I love. So if those are the things I'm really passionate about in life, that's what I wanted to change. And I felt like interior design and I guess also interior architecture, they're just kind of a really great, productive way that I can enjoy decor. Like, as I said, even since I was like a little kid, and like when I would go door to door for Girl Scouts, sometimes neighbors would be like, oh my God, come in, it's so cold. Being able to see like the inside of my neighbor's house, this is gonna sound kind of creepy. I was so excited. I loved getting to see the insides of people's houses because I wanted to know like how they differ from me and like the way they decorate and how much that differs from the exterior of their house. So, and I think the concept of interior design as a job was just, I learned about it from my mom. She just told me about it, so. advice for future seniors. It's the same advice I have for anybody, and that is go at your own pace. Don't be ashamed to take longer than everyone else, because like that's what we're told to do here at VNS. Like, be an individual, make your education your own, do things your own way, therefore go at your own pace. So that's kind of my biggest thing. Also, listen to advisors, because sometimes when they're saying something, it's not just because they like are telling you to do it. It's usually because they've gone through the process and seen the outcomes 1,000 times, and they don't want you to have to go through that yourself and waste time. So.
What was your least favorite part of the project?
What was my least favorite part of my project? That's actually kind of easy for me. I really struggled with my research, primarily like just sitting down and doing it, because I'm really, really into creation, and I do like learning. I really don't like note-taking. So, I guess it wasn't so much the research, it was more just the writing it all down and like transforming it into notes that I didn't like.
How did you keep motivation and not procrastinate, just not get burnt out on what you're doing in general?
How did I maintain motivation? That is a particularly relevant question for me. I am pretty well known for just like showing up to previous assessments. When I was younger, I've changed, I'm better now. I would show up to assessments and have like 5 hours to show in total. Like, that's how hard I would procrastinate. And it got to the point where I wasn't even like nervous about my future. I just kind of like accepted that I was a failure and like decided that was my life now. But I think in those moments of like, I feel like a failure, I can't get anything done, that is the most important time to reach out to your support system, because the people who love you are there to help you, and if they're not giving you the help you want, the way you want it, you need to communicate that to them, and never stop fighting to be rightfully treated, because if they really do love you, they'll change how they treat you and change how they help you. And I struggle so much with internal motivation, and this is probably the worst school to have bad internal motivation, because it's all about, your passion is what drives you. I'm like, well, I have passion, but I also have depression, so it's tough, but that's where you really gotta lean on your support system and let them know exactly how they can help you, whether that's like, hey, I need you to check in with me every day to talk about what I need to be doing, or it's, can you just like help me eat a meal today? Like, I can't feed myself, I don't know what to do. Being honest with the people who help you is so important.
Yes. How did you learn how to balance your schoolwork with like your health struggles? Like,
So how did I learn to balance my schoolwork and mental health struggles? Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I am uniquely bad at hiding that I'm suffering, because I'm very talkative. So, I think there are a lot of teenagers or other people my age who suffer with mental health issues and can't get over it because they don't talk about it. And that's kind of the first step of the process is, tell your family that you're suffering. And I am really lucky to have such an understanding support system. But for me, it was, I kept on trying new medication. I never give up on medication because if you wouldn't judge someone who has diabetes for taking insulin, so don't be embarrassed to be taking mental health medication because it's literally life-saving. So never give up on medication, go to therapy, that's a big one. And if your therapist isn't good enough, go to a different therapist. Don't ever think you should settle when you're taking care of your mental health. That is a great priority. And set boundaries with people, be honest with how they affect you. And then when it comes to actually doing the schoolwork, break it down into as many little pieces as possible. The more you break it down, and it's not just that, because even if you do have an itemized list of everything to do in your head, that's not, you need to write it down, because the less things you are trying to store in your brain all the time, I feel the better you just process as a person. So the more information you're taking in all the time without putting any of it elsewhere, of course you're gonna blow a fuse. If you're trying to think about and sort out, not just everything you need to do, but when do you need to do it? When is it due? How many littler steps can it be broken down into? All of that is so much easier to do out on paper. Yeah. And what was that? Oh, there was I will say that Fox Valley technical class that I took on college success, all the fundamentals the VNS preaches is what they're gonna teach you basically, how to plan, how to be an independent worker, all this kind of stuff. However, they do also give you official terminology for everything you will have been doing for the past 5 years. So that's kind of more helpful. But that idea of sitting down and organizing your life and resolving issues, working through your issue. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting off track. I guess just take care of yourself. And if you don't have time to take care of yourself, make time. Because there are a lot of things in life that you might feel are actually super necessary to your daily life, and then you don't realize until you've thrown it all aside how much of it wasn't necessary to your day-to-day, and how much time you could have made before you started to fall down and rot. Any other questions? Milo,
How does it feel to have this project done?
how does it feel to have this project done? It's not done. So, yeah, for those of you who may not know this, your senior presentation is like the first of two finish lines. It's like you're in the end zone marker, and now you have this like small amount of time between now and your assessment. So like,
How does it feel to have this project almost done?
almost done. Pretty good. But I will say, you know, it is fun little fact for you. Common trait with people, or common trait for people who have ADHD is not feeling like better or like payoff or relief from long-term gratification. And I have that, so I'm kind of like, the more effort it takes, like the longer it takes for me to work towards finishing something, the more I kind of hate it. And so by the end of it, I'm kind of like, I'm not even happy it's over, I'm just tired. And I just feel like I need to move on. So that's something my support system does for me, is my, like, the people who love me, they force me to celebrate my accomplishments. So, yeah. Ms. Kozlowski.
Just as a follow-up to a couple of previous questions and also your response, I wondered if you might be able to offer some insight on, from your perspective, what's helped you, find the difference between, or maybe not necessarily for you, but for other people too, the difference between going at your own pace and simply maybe procrastinating or simply avoiding work. Like, how do we recognize in ourselves when we might be falling into one of the other traps or a story we're telling ourselves, as opposed to like just going at your own pace and finding out what that pace is?
Yeah, so the difference between going at your own pace and procrastinating. It's finite. It's a very, very small difference. I think it relies on a few very small factors. That being, do you actually have a goal, like an end goal? And have you, like, reasonably recognized what you are capable within a certain time span and created your deadline based off of your work time span? Or did you just set a deadline because you needed to set a goal regardless of how quickly or slowly you feel like you work? Because if you're creating a plan based off knowing how long it takes you to work, like, that's going at your own pace. That is the planning part. But if you're creating a plan because you have to create a plan and get something done, and you don't care like how long it takes, and you just want to get it over with, and then you proceed to not work on it, that's kind of the difference there. Also, I think whether or not you're successful is kind of the difference between procrastination and going at your own pace, because you go at your own pace until the day you die. So, you know, if you're procrastinating, that kind of like generally leads you to some level of failure. And if you're going at your own pace, you should be succeeding in life. That is, if you are willing to stand up for yourself and what you need, like if you're willing to advocate for yourself. So, yeah. Yes, Ms. Lipke.
I know part of your research was about sort of the architectural trends, both in like suburbia and then maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Are there any trends that are sort of reversing that cookie cutter concept in the suburbs, or any trends that you ran across that you like in architecture design?
Okay, so the question was based on me talking about the idea of like suburbia and whatnot, are there any current trends that are going against that? Yes, there is a common theme among my generation, I guess, is to not just recognize our consumerism, because, okay, so the minimalist movement really became popular with millennials, and the idea of like, the less you have, the better person you are, like the less you can just leave behind, the more spiritually awakened you are, or more fulfilled you are as a person. But then, and like the defense was kind of like, to have stuff is to be materialistic and like to give into consumerism, which, to have stuff, yeah, that's true, but like, there's no reason you shouldn't enjoy the things you love because it's technically like participating in capitalism. To live in America is to participate in capitalism. You don't get a choice. And to just simply be able to say no is very privileged. So although the idea of, choice is a luxury, getting to have well-decorated housing and like customized or individualized housing is a luxury. And a lot of apartment complexes where they just want to standardize, make it as cheap as possible, they go with that modern style. But I've seen within like my generation, which is Gen Z, that recognition of consumerism and disregarding it anyways, because like, to live life is to need things, to want things, to love things, to know, like, to know. And you have gotta like enjoy the things you love, especially if it makes you feel better. And so there's a pretty common thread, a common trend among Gen Z. It's just like, regardless of being cringe or embarrassed, like, love the things you love. And I think one of the best quotes I've ever heard is like, don't kill the part of you that's cringe, kill the part of you that cringes. So, we try to be more into that individual side and celebrate it more, even if, we have to participate in our economy. Anything? Isaac.
Favorite part of the project?
Favorite part of the project? Creating my 3D model and getting to actually make some things happen. Because for my first interior design project, I created a 3D model and then we moved spaces and I couldn't make any of it happen at all. And it was kind of a bummer. So when I got that first couch in the lead key advisory, I was kind of like, yes, I broke my little like streak. I was really worried it was gonna become a streak of like not fully fulfilling projects to the extent I wanted to. But no, I made some more things happen here. And it's not all, like, it's not fully everything I could possibly want it, but it is better than last time. It's personal growth, and I'll take that. Yes, Ms. Florence?
So if you maybe contacted Hoffman's earlier and then had like an unlimited budget and maybe time, like what would have been your like, what would you have done? I feel like budget was a big constraint too.
Yeah, yep. Unlimited time, unlimited budget, and had contacted Hoffman at the beginning of the school year. I would also like to throw in, I would love to have started the school year with confirmation that we'll be staying in this building
Oh, yeah.
and that we own it. There are so many nuances about the redesign of the Luke Cute space. Like, I have cut back so much already. Like, even last year, Lubke told me I could have full reign over designing the entirety of the new school space. And then from there, it just kept on being, well, you can lead the whole school in an activity. Well, you can supervise the activity. Well, you can give feedback. Well, you can do, we can confirm that you'll get this room. You can make a plan. Like, it was such a bummer to keep on having to cut back, because I'm a big dreamer. That's one thing my parents taught me, is I don't hold myself back when it comes to being imaginative. So the plans I come up with are grand, and I fully expect to make them happen at the beginning of my project process. So I think if I had like all of those things, obviously I'd go full, like, we're buying a plot of land and building an old, like, I will get us designing like a new school space and like state-of-the-art facility and everything, but that didn't get to happen. So, anything else? Yes?
So hopefully in the future, we do get to make some changes here. What one or two or three things would you suggest we change about the physical space at VNS to increase engagement or community or productivity?
I'm so glad you asked. Well, first of all, one thing I wanted to, make clear is, like, even after I leave VNS, I'll be staying in Appleton for the foreseeable future unless something suddenly changes. But I have offered to all the advisors my design services for free, and I would like come in to your advisory, and as like an activity, we would all work on designing your advisory together. So that would be a great experience that I would love to be able to facilitate and make happen. I'm not paying for it, but I will do essentially my job for free, and then you get to buy your stuff yourself. But essentially, the biggest issues with our current space is there's too many small rooms. So that's the main thing. There are too many nooks for students to hide in. The colors are, you don't really realize how bad the colors are because we have so many great windows, and that kind of makes up for the dull scenery. I would love to have murals. I feel like that's such a unique part of VNS culture that we had to leave behind at our old space, and it would be great to have murals on some very specific walls. I think we should put in curtains at the end of that hallway and the middle hallway here, and by the 3D printer that we can close for event nights so that the common public won't go back into that space, because right now we just put chairs there to block the way. So I think that would be nice. Obviously, curtains all along the walls would be great. More communal seat, like it would be so nice to have like booths or something to just sit in, like you could go eat lunch there with your friends or something. So. Delia?
What do you think like your dream space would be? Kind of like a question.
I am a sucker for it. You mean for like Valley New School, right?
Anyway.
Okay, my just dream piece of architecture to work on. I really, really love Victorian painted ladies. They're the big, colorful Victorian, like basically mansions, but they're kind of houses. They're in that mid-size between mansion and house, where it's just kind of a little unreasonable, but not fully unreasonable. Yeah, they're big Victorian houses, and my like dream end of life goal, like retirement goal, is to renovate and like run a old Victorian house as a B&B and just kind of like live there. Otherwise, I really like mid-century modern architecture. Like if we could find like a MCM office space for VNS, it would be over for you guys. Like you'd be done. That is my dream right there. The wood paneling, all the glass, they're great. I love mid-century modern so much. It's great. Adrian?
Okay, besides gentrification,
Uh-huh.
what is like one interior design trend or style that you absolutely hate?
What is one interior design trend or style that I hate? Okay, so first of all, I don't know if you guys know this, but the full quote of "the customer is always right" is actually, the customer is always right in matters of taste. So you can like whatever you like. That, like, there is no right or wrong opinion for taste. And also, I have things I too don't like. So I don't like minimalism, I think, or brutalism. I think brutalism is ugly. I don't like simplicity. I think it's a cop-out. And I think the fight or the path of like, the more you simplify, the more modern you are, is so dumb. Like, that's just another marketing scheme. Like, it's just the opposite of, you know, to be luxurious is to have great detail because we can do that. And now it's like, the greatest thing you can possibly do is be a metal cube. So I'm really anti-simplicity.
Signs with words.
Oh, I hate signs with words, like the live, laugh, love. You don't need to label things, you don't need quotes in your house. That's silly. And if you do, like, get a painting. Like, that is the most you should be doing. I don't want to see live, laugh, love, or bless this mess, or I'd rather die than have that in my house. Sorry. In fact, I will go into decor, like home goods and stuff, and I will turn those walls around and like looking at them. They're really upsetting to me. Ooh, and I don't like animal print.
Animal print.
I recognize the value in its culture to cultures it is significant to, but that doesn't mean I have to like it or wear it or use it, so.
Like pelts.
Sure, like pelts, or just whenever like they make fabric that is just like cheetah print or something. I don't like it. It's not for me. Yes, Beckett?
So because you're like interior design and like don't like things with letters, what is your opinion on like the cat wall thing?
can look at it, it's right on
right
the
there.
corner.
The cat wall.
You haven't seen it?
I've seen a cat.
Now there's more.
Oh my god.
You haven't seen it?
That's more like a, it's not that I don't like things labeled, like, that is closer to having an art gallery where you're just saying like, what the piece is, who made it, or whatever. It's not like inspirational quote on the wall, or like scripture on the wall. Which, you're allowed to your religious representation, that's fine, but it's still a quote, and I don't like it. Yes?
Maybe about welcome mats.
Ooh. Oh, conflicted. Yes.
What do you think of those like written bumper stickers people have at the back of their car?
I hate bumper stickers. I'm very picky about where they go. They shouldn't go on your actual bumper. That's tacky. They should go on your window,
What
your
makes
back
something
window.
tacky?
What?
What makes something tacky?
If it's not yet camp.
Big
If it's
words.
not good enough to be camp, it's tacky. That's what it means. Like, if it's not so bad, it's good. It's like, it's just 1% below that, it's tacky. And some people love that, and that's fine, but they're wrong. And that's fine too.
Well, they could just say you're wrong.
Yeah, I know.
We should clap for Cindy for this, 'cause I